Hello everyone, this is CT-Toolbox's Demo Day presentation. My name is Justin Harris, and my team members are Billy Henry and Hannah Moyer. CT-Toolbox is designed to be a software system that allows for a hands-free presentation method in Kutztown University classrooms. While we are definitely not claiming to be ADA compliant, our goal was to create a system that would help us move towards that direction. This software was made solely for Kutztown University classrooms and is dependent on their uniform setup. By using this system, presenters will also have the ability to move around the classroom and have access to technology that sits in front of most of these classrooms. Here we have our context diagram. This diagram clearly points out all the actors and devices that communicate with our system, and many of the possible commands that the system can handle. Our system is bidirectional and allows for the user to give speech input and receive speech output. Here we have our high-level use case diagram. Each use case represents one of the functionalities that a presenter in a Kutztown classroom could perform. As you can see, there are commands involving utilizing a Blu-ray player and adjusting the volume in a room. Unfortunately, we did not get to all of the use cases we had hoped for. The classroom we used as our base of operations in BK 125 did not have integrated lighting, and thus we were unable to complete those use cases. In the future, the lighting requirements, and maybe even some microphone requirements, can definitely be looked at as ways to expand our system, and we have the means to complete them. However, we would just need a little bit more time to be able to implement those things.
In the spring, when we were making a prototype, our goal was to create an Alexa skill that would handle basic classroom technology commands. Originally, we wanted to establish a connection between the Alexa skill and the classroom technology, but we had to change that plan after campus was closed and we were no longer able to use the hardware in the classroom. We then decided to focus solely on the Alexa skill. When we started this project, none of us had experience creating an Alexa skill, so it was a big learning experience. Our finished skill handled user speech input and simulated the appropriate responses. This gave us experience using the Alexa Developer Console and taught us how to use and create a Lambda function. The skill we created for the prototype became the backbone for the rest of our project. We had a lot of support for our project, and without it we would not have been able to get very far. Tyler Schwab, the manager of classroom technologies at Kutztown University, was a huge help to us. He was able to reserve classroom space for us to work in, first in the Economic Forum and then later in BK. These classrooms became our base of operations and where we did all of the work for our project. When we were first starting our project, Tyler gave us a rundown on the technology in Kutztown classrooms. He showed us what was possible and what wasn't, what the different equipment was, and what our options were to communicate with it. He also provided the hardware and tools that we needed. Now that we had access to the classroom technology, we needed to be able to write software for it. Extron is the company that makes the technology that Kutztown uses, and representatives Peter Knapp and Jason Bond from Extron were very helpful to us. They gave us access to Global Scripter, the software needed to write code for the classroom technology, and gave us a crash course in how to use it. Peter and Jason also provided us code files that we needed in order to communicate with the specific AV sources we had in our classroom. With their help, we now had access to all of the tools that we needed. Here you can see our architecture diagram. This shows all of the parts of our system, how they work together, and how data flows throughout the system. The starting point is the Amazon Echo Dot. The user gives a voice command, and the Amazon skill takes that and turns it into JSON data. Our Lambda function then sorts through the JSON data to find specific parts we need. Then, to get the data to the classroom technology, it is sent through the Amazon Simple Queue service and our Toolbox client to our Global Scripter program, which runs on the controller. This program takes the data and then communicates it to the switcher what needs to be changed. For example, turning on the projector or turning up the volume. A response message then gets sent back up through the system, and the user hears Alexa give a response.
On this slide, you can see an example of one of the test cases that we performed on our software throughout the testing and development process. By looking at the document, you can see a short description of what the test case is testing exactly, any preconditions that might need to be met in order to perform the test, and then also any dependencies that the software may need in order to perform this test. Looking at the bottom, you can see two different test steps that we took in the process. The first one we did was to check that an AV source was either powered on or powered off. You can see we provided some test data, which just gave us an example of a voice command that we could give to the Alexa, and then we can see our expected results in the next column. The actual results is what we wanted to hear back from the Alexa, the response. So you can see that both of our test cases here passed. There were a couple times throughout the process that some of our test results failed, and we needed to go back and make changes to account for those failures to make sure that they passed for the next time. Our project, being an Amazon Alexa skill, required the use of Lambda functions. Lambda functions are pieces of code that reside on AWS servers. They trigger based off of events that a user may specify, allowing a versatile way to create a back-end code base for an Amazon web-based program. In our case, we used Lambda that triggered off of an Alexa voice command. A user would give a voice command to Alexa in order to control an AV source in the classroom, making sure to use the trigger word toolbox. This lets Alexa know that it needs to trigger the Lambda function for our skill. Lambda would then perform the back-end logic. It interprets what you say and formulates a message that can then be passed down the chain, as you previously saw in our system's architecture diagram. There are many different use cases for Lambda functions that allow endless possibilities for developers looking to create web-based applications. Here, you can see a screenshot from the Lambda development console. The software was used to develop and test our Lambda function. In the bottom right, you can see the status of the Lambda function says succeeded. This message is provided after running a user-created test event for a Lambda function. To create these test events, all we needed to provide was example voice commands from our Alexa skill. This would act as the input to the Lambda function that we could then use to test with the click of a button. Using this method of testing, we could easily test all of our voice commands after adding new features, just to make sure we didn't break anything. If a test failed, we would then be provided with an error message and enough description to allow us to make changes and ensure our application was fully functional. There were many challenges that we encountered towards the beginning planning stages of this project. Many of them were based around uncertainty on how exactly we were going to complete the project, because of campus restrictions caused by COVID. We weren't sure we were going to be allowed on campus, which would have made our project almost impossible to develop. Thankfully, we were able to reserve a classroom and use it at any time. Another challenge we encountered was learning how to use all the different software components needed for Toolbox to work. It may seem like a simple concept, just using Alexa to turn the volume up or pause the Blu-ray player. However, it required a lot more tools and we had no experience with to start. Whether it was the Alexa Skills Kit, Lambda, Amazon's Simple Queue service, or Global Scripter, these were things that were new to all of us and required hours of experimentation to learn. There were some big lessons learned during the process as well. Reading documentation is important for any kind of software development, but we learned that the hard way while creating our skill and AV source interactions. It became a running reminder for all of us to clearly read the documentation before writing any code for Lambda or the Extron script. Also, we learned that it may help to have a support network. Tyler Schwab from the IT department came up for the initial idea for our project and provided tons of help along the way. We also received a lot of help from Peter and Jason at Extron, who gave us access to their software and provided guidance throughout our learning process. If there was one takeaway from this experience, it would be that you have to be willing to learn and adapt along the way. Your first vision of a project might be completely different than the final outcome, and that's okay. Learning new things and making small changes are all part of the process. Now that we've introduced you all to CT-Toolbox, we can show you the finished product in action. We'll run through many of our voice commands and give you an idea of how our skill could be used in a classroom at Kutztown.
Alright, to use our skill you have to use the toolbox trigger word. That's how you have to let Alexa know that you're trying to use our skill. So, Alexa, start toolbox.
Welcome to CT-Toolbox.
If this is your first time using the skill and you don't know what to say, you can ask for help. So, Alexa, ask Toolbox for help.
The CT-Toolbox Alexa skill allows you to control classroom technology to control the projector, change the current input, and change the volume level. An example command is, Alexa, ask Toolbox to turn on the projector. See the user guide for more examples.
So we're going to do what she suggested. Alexa, ask Toolbox to turn on the projector.
The projector is now on.
We wanted our skill to be able to do pretty much every single command that you can do normally in a classroom, either with the touch panel or the buttons. So we'll wait for the screen to go on. Alexa, mute the screen. Or Alexa, ask Toolbox to mute the screen.
The projector video is now muted.
Alexa, ask Toolbox to unmute the projector video.
The projector video is now unmuted.
Alexa, ask Toolbox to switch to the document camera.
The document camera is now being shown.
Alexa, ask Toolbox which device is currently being shown.
The current input is document camera.
Yeah. So now we're going to show you some of the classroom technology.
Okay, so this is our podium here in BQ 125. It's a pretty typical classroom setup. It's got a lot of the stuff that you'll find in most of the classrooms here at Kutztown. So I'll just kind of come down here and go through some of the devices that we have here. Obviously our PC up at the top here. We have our Blu-ray player right under that. And then down at the bottom here is the most important device down here actually. This is our Extron. It's a switcher and controller combo. So the left side here is the switcher and the right side here is the controller. So the software that we wrote in Global Scripter actually runs on this controller. And that's what allows us to communicate with all the devices with both the Alexa and our touch panel in the classroom. So if we come back up here, this is our touch panel. We actually started with this and wrote all of our commands to our audio and the video devices with that first. Just having that first allowed us to then figure out the Alexa side of it. So everything we can do on here, we can also do with the Alexa. All right, so now we're going to show you some of the simple commands that we have built into work with our Blu-ray player using the Alexa. So first we're going to go ahead and switch the input to the Blu-ray. We're going to say, Alexa, ask Toolbox to switch the current input to the Blu-ray player.
The Blu-ray player is now being shown.
Okay, Alexa, ask Toolbox to open the disc tray on the Blu-ray player.
Blu-ray tray is now open.
Okay, we've got our disc in here. Alexa, ask Toolbox to close the disc tray on the Blu-ray player.
Blu-ray tray is now closed.
Okay, now we're going to show you a couple more commands that we have on our Blu-ray player with the Alexa.
Alright, so now we're going to get into some Blu-ray functionality, which would usually be taken care of with the remote or the touch panel in the classroom, but we'll be using our skill to do that. So, Alexa, ask Toolbox to play on the Blu-ray player. Alexa, ask Toolbox to play on the Blu-ray player.
Blu-ray is now playing.
Cool. Alexa, ask Toolbox to fast forward on the Blu-ray player.
Blu-ray player is forwarding.
Alright, Alexa, ask Toolbox to rewind on the Blu-ray player.
Blu-ray player is rewinding.
Alright, Alexa, ask Toolbox to play on the Blu-ray player.
Blu-ray is now playing.
Alright, so now we're going to go over some additional functionalities that we added to our skill, just some normal stuff that you can already do in the classroom. Alexa, ask Toolbox to freeze the display.
The screen is now frozen.
Alexa, ask Toolbox to unfreeze the screen.
The screen is now unfrozen.
Alexa, ask Toolbox to set the volume to high.
The audio level has been changed.
Right. Alexa, ask Toolbox to mute the audio.
The audio is now muted.
Alexa, ask Toolbox to unmute the audio.
The audio is now unmuted.
Alright. Alexa, ask Toolbox to set the volume to low.
The audio level has been changed.
And now, Alexa, ask Toolbox to switch the current input to PC.
The PC is now being shown.
Okay, thanks again for watching our presentation. We just wanted to give a quick shout out to the Kutztown IT department and Tyler Schwab just for letting us get into the classroom and use all the hardware.
and also Extron for giving us access to their software and allowing us to make this skill. So yeah, thanks again for watching. Alexa, ask Toolbox to stop.
Thank you for using CT Toolbox. Have a nice day.